Oops. All right. So we'll begin with the 7-limb prayer. It's on. Are you? Is that my? Am I showing it?
I think.
There we go.
Nana might be showing it.
Okay, so I should quit sharing. No, I think I'm showing it. All right. Couldn't figure out why the pictures were there. Okay. Doesn't matter. It's on, what page is it on?
35.
35.
Yeah.
Good. All right. So reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain into the encyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. And dedicate our own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. And then page 98. It's orange. Be careful, don't fall down. Hops. Okay, so refuge. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Do you have an iPhone?
No.
Is your phone an iPhone?
No, why? What happened?
Nothing. I was just going to say I have an iPhone, so you know how you can share something that's close to you. Okay. Good.
Thank you.
All right. So. Okay, so one of the things that's really important when you're studying the Dharma is understanding what the basic technique is. And so when you're hearing teachings, so one is you have to hear the teachings or, or read a book or whatever. And so the key there is, hearing, but by hearing, what do we mean? Listening, thank you. So we need to listen, and then we want to contemplate. So what does contemplate mean in this context?
Reflect on.
Not quite yet.
Investigate.
Huh?
Investigate.
Investigate, think about it. Part of it is reflect, but meditation is the last step, and that's when you more deeply just actually, it's interesting. Let me get okay. Did I highlight this part? No. So what we refer to as analytical meditation, where you're investigating and you're coming up with an argument, then for your, not an argument as in terms of an argument, but more in terms of logic and reasoning, is you're trying to develop the reasons why you might agree with a certain part of the teachings or why you might not agree. You're really, and you're trying to compare it to your experience. And this is, the part that we call analytical meditation, but it's really thinking. No, it's not, meditation, not quite an accurate word in this context of listening, contemplation, and meditation, because meditation is when you've already clearly ascertained the subject matter. So you've already got sort of an intellectual understanding of what's being said. And now you're trying to dwell on that. So it's not, and of course, new things might bubble up in that meditation, all that kind of stuff, but you're not still struggling to understand it. That's what you do in analytical meditation and in reflection. Then you go back and you read some more, or you listen some more, or whatever. It's an ongoing process. And we do this with everything we're reading about. So it's not just one subject or something. It's all of the information. So that's kind of why we call our events at the center classes. That's why I use the word study a lot. It's really about, because it's a process of learning and trying to investigate the meaning and compare it to our experience, that also find out, try some new ideas out in our perspective, so that with our new experiences, we can kind of see if we think that, when I look at it from this angle, maybe I understand something in a different way. So this idea of selfless listening in relationships and in learning. So what's the emphasis there?
Thinking like everything personal.
In fact, not thinking about yourself at all at that time while you're listening.
That's trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes.
Not going there yet either.
No.
When you're trying to listen, it's not about you at all. It's just about making sure you're understanding what is being said. So later, you might reflect on it, maybe even in that conversation, you might reflect on it, and you may want to you might want to share back what you think you heard to make sure you heard correctly, so that they can verify whether they've heard or not. Same with teachings. You listen to a teaching, you want to make sure you're understanding it, and that may mean you have to read some more, or you have to read it again. It's not always something that you can just ask a question about. It may just, it may involve more investigation, but mostly it's this listening with no preconceived notions, no agenda of your own, other than to try to understand what's being said. And it's a skill, and we often don't use it. We don't even know how. We don't really operate that way. So it's really good if you notice, that, you start to check up, and you check whether, when you're listening, if you're really listening to understand, or if you're listening with coming up with your reasons why they're wrong, or why that's not possible, or whatever it is. If you're looking at your own stuff, and you're not, so what happens when you do that?
Not beneficial.
Well, and you're not listening at that
It's not
point.
beneficial.
Yeah, you can't, if you're having a conversation in your head, you're listening to yourself, not listening to the other person. So it makes it very difficult to learn and to really understand. It also slows everything down, which sometimes is the resistance. It's like, every conversation is going to take forever, if I actually have to listen to the other person and make sure I understand what they're saying. But it's amazing how if you allow yourself to do this, how often you discover you don't understand, and you have to check up, kind of going, oh, okay, this is what I heard you say, and they'll say, yeah, that's what I said. And then you can say, this is what I think that means. And they'll go, no, that's not what I mean. So, and that's incredibly helpful to make sure it's clear, because too many decisions are based on misinformation, on just, you didn't hear it right, so so understanding can't happen when when you haven't even done the first step, which is listening to what's being expressed.
You're listening without emotion.
Well, you're just not in the picture. You're listening with open-mindedness,
Yeah.
so you're not listening with any agenda,
No preconceived
preconceived notion. Yeah.
idea, no preconceived ideas.
Yeah. Now, this is also something. So this is why, how I'm always talking about that little catch that I get. That catch is hooked you, if you realize, oh, okay, I'm hooked. It's important then to say, I'm kind of hooked. I'm not listening right now. I've turned, okay, let's back up or step, and so you give yourself a little time to kind of see, or be able to name it. Oh, I'm a little afraid right now, so, and obviously it depends on the conversation and who you're having it with, but it's good for you to know that, if no one else, that this is, all of a sudden there's something that's arisen for you, and that's going to distort your hearing. You can't help but distort your hearing. You've now got a filter that everything's going through, and it may not be accurate, because whatever has triggered that little sensation of discomfort, could be something related to a voice, a tone of voice, a totally irrelevant thing that just happens to affect you in that moment. But it isn't actually relevant to the relationship or anything. But it will become that way if we don't have self-awareness that, oops, I'm not totally present without that preconceived notion thing going on. So we want to try to have that kind of openness when we're listening to the teachings, because we want to be able to, because so much of this stuff is completely outside our culture, and our upbringing, and just the whole worldview is bizarre. So, we want to be able to just make sure we're hearing it and not immediately kind of going, I don't know about that, or just, or accepting it without really understanding it. So it's really an interactive process, not just because we're not talking about facts here. When you're talking about a spiritual path, it's not facts. It's a very much, an inner process of understanding and perspective. And we always will have our own perspective when we look. We can't not have that. We just want to really make sure when we're listening to something fresh, that we have a fresh mind while we're listening to it, But then when we investigate, our perspective's got to come in there. It can't not. It's going to be there. And we want it to be there. We want to see, because one of the things we want to do is to challenge our own perspective. So we need to know it's there. Yeah.
I know I understand what you mean when you say it's not factual, but there are times practicing Dharma, trying to put the Dharma into practice, into life, where you get a positive reinforcement. And it's it's real. I mean, it makes a difference. You can see
That doesn't make it a fact.
that, no, I know, but you can see.
So
that
then
it
what's that
works.
got to do with fact?
Right, but it's not factual, but it still becomes evident that it works.
It may be a truth, and it may be that it's a truth for you. And I don't mean that as if truth is relative,
No,
because it's not,
right.
but it's this kind of, yes, there are facts, you could say facts about what the teachings say. Of course, it's come down over 2,500 years and different translators and different this and that. So whether or not that's good. Is it off your cushion? Yeah. Okay. So it's not like learning math till you get to upper math. The kind of math that you kind of go, yeah, I don't think I'm going to go there. Post calculus or something. So
Way math.
yeah. Well, when you get to upper, to higher math, then it's kind of wild, So,
My son says it's not about numbers.
that's right. It's kind of exciting, and it can describe the universe.
So, so let me understand. So we know math, 2 and 2 is 4. But what you're expressing is that the spirituality is individual, whereas 2 and 2 and 4 is universal, but the spirituality
Well,
is individual.
sort of. Yeah, sort of. Well, I mean, a physicist might argue about 2 and 2 equals 4. It's like when you learn
Well,
they're negative numbers.
right, well,
And then, yeah, but I'm just saying, yes, you're right. So there's a, that we may have accurately captured something that the Buddha said, okay, and accurately understood its meaning, really has, not a whole lot of value in and of itself if we have not integrated it with our being, if we don't investigate it and decide, and then have a kind of an experience of the truth of that, where it changes us somehow in our inner world, So it's, and then you try to describe that experience to someone and you can't, because it's not something that we can, until you can read minds or something. But even then, I'm not sure, if you can share an experience and, and know what someone else experienced, so. But, it's just, there's a richer thing to this process than the way most of what we learn in schools about, what makes a complete sentence or something, you want to learn how to write a complete sentence before you try poetry, but for a different reason. So when we're listening, we want to be able to, when we listen, we want to make sure we're kind of here, we've actually heard whatever is being said and that we've got some correct idea of what we heard, but then when we're playing around with it, when we're contemplating it, when we're, putting our analysis to it, we want to be aware of all kinds of experience that we're having with it, like what we notice if we bring that perspective to some event during the day, or or we're just thinking about it and we're looking back to some event in the past and we're kind of going, it's just like when we learn anything, we learn something new about a person and then we go, that puts that into that interaction into context, so it's not something we want to do just with our intellect. We want to do it with our intellect and our feelings and our emotions. I mean, everything. We want to have meaning. So, And then we want to be able to discern if our reaction to something, our experience of something, if our perspective is distorting it. When can that happen?
I'm tired.
Fatigue certainly does it. You know, you're not able to hear it all or remember anything, or you just can't, your mind's just not working. So certainly that's it. Fatigue doesn't help.
When the distortion is somewhat in your self-interest.
Self-interest is one of those really distorting factors. It is amazing how hard it is to try to make a decision without self-interest. Wow, it's so difficult because as soon as you think you've gotten it, then you kind of go, okay, that could be there. It really is hard to take yourself out of it. Yeah.
So, yeah, probably all of us, it's like you read it and you read it and you read it, and then you go out the door and you live your life. And I've been thinking, oh, this, there's that, and then there's that.
Yeah.
But it happens. And for me, it's been happening with attachment. And I'm watching, and you talk about things that color it. So I'm trying to like parse out and think and bring some insight into my own reaction as I watch myself. And my overriding feeling through these days, most recently, has been boredom, disillusionment. She's like, yeah, like things seem old. Once I start looking at it through, I think, an incorporated lens of the attachment and disattachment lens.
Okay, so trying to make sure I understand what you're saying is that now that you are looking at things and, okay, recognizing your attachment with them or that I'm not sure I understand.
I'm not sure I do either.
Okay,
It's just an overriding like color. In my mind these days seems to be a lot of it's not disillusionment. It's just kind of flat. Things are
right.
flatter that I used to get much more. I mean, on a scale of all the way up to passion from, like.
Yeah, I hate to say
jollies.
that Buddhism can destroy your passion, but sometimes it does. Yeah.
And just truly sorry.
Well, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. I mean, that's
I'm
the
not
part.
summed up all
trying
my-
to say it in
It's-
those terms, but that's the way
Well, it is.
came
I
to
mean,
mind.
is when we start to look and start to realize that what we have given, some things that we have given meaning to are really just about some sort of sensory pleasure or dislike.
And time too.
And yeah, I mean, it's just,
Energy.
well, I mean, and then we're kind of, if we don't know what to do instead, we can kind of feel like, oh,
Yes.
so what it's important to look for is what still gives meaning to your life that isn't that. Like relationships or, it usually involves people, or art or something, like that. Yeah.
Yes, I think what this woman is saying, so she used to place values because she said the passion for things. you used to place value or more value on life experiences. But when you become more spiritual within, Buddha or whatever it may be, when you begin to become more spiritual, those life experiences, those passions mellow out, and so what are you left with? That lens that you speak of, half of it is focused on the life experiences, and half of it is now on the spirituality that you're seeking through what the life experiences are today.
Right. And this is where we want to be able to find balance. We want to be able, because you know how you said at the beginning, it's like, okay, and then you go out into your life. Of course, that's missing the whole point, which is, of course, what people do. I mean, it's like why I consider, I use when I would, go to Sunday teachings or something, it was like the Dharma booster shot of the week, like as if you're not doing that for yourself every day, so but it really shows that we need to see that. That's part of the truth of suffering that the Buddha talks about, is that, there's something dissatisfying about our just chasing after desire, and so that, that when we replace that with activity that's, actually meaningful, that actually leads to some sort of everlasting happiness, then, it's not that life becomes more and more dull. It may become less and less sensory focused, and more people focused. How do I help this person, or how can I do this well, or how, it's a different focus. And we really do want to work on that, because otherwise we're giving up our current source of, so-called pleasure, and with nothing to replace it, and so then we give up.
That leads me back to the positive reinforcement that I mentioned before. Change from sensory or samsaric and get more into being compassionate, doing things or practicing the Dharma, studying and meditating. There's positive reinforcement that you actually feel better.
Yeah, but what does that take, Roy? Right. So you skipping all those steps and going to the conclusion.
Well, no, but I'm just saying, but if you do the work,
Okay, what is the work?
then you recognize that working on being compassionate, working on practicing the Dharma, studying the Dharma, meditating.
Listening, contemplating, and meditating. But so it's like, well, it's just that, we really need to understand how to get there. One of those phases of getting there, one of the steps is recognizing, oh, this really isn't good enough. This isn't enough. I mean, I think that's what people do, like they talk about, different tasks for the different stages of life, and it's like, you have the raising your children. First, you have to grow up, and then you raise your children, and then you create a career and make a living and all that kind of stuff. And then you kind of done that kind of work, and then you kind of like, okay, now what? So what would enrich my life now? And a lot of people turn to spiritual paths at that stage. What's unfortunate is not having done it sooner, because that means a lot of what we've done is wasted time. Yep. I thought you raised your hand, but yeah.
Yeah, what they were saying, the one word that keeps coming to me is overrated.
Oh man, is it overrated?
Right? Like so the spiritual path leads to my belief that like the world up there, whatever, just everything's overrated.
Yeah, and this is the thing, and it's so good to notice that, oh, this isn't it. This isn't it. So how can, it's like when you realize you don't want to spend every lunch just small talk with your friends, that's not good enough, that if you're going to have friends, you'd like to have it be richer than that, so you try to talk about things other than what movie they saw last week. I don't know what people talk about, tell you the truth. So, but it's this, we want to start seeking something that has more meaning to us.
Or you find yourself in a place or an experience where you realize, oh, that is where I want to be. So today, the gazebo at Century Village with the bands played. So I came out of my sewing and I went there, and it was a beautiful day. And I just sat, and I realized that previous to this afternoon, I would sit and I'd get up and run to something else. And I was just content. I think content would be the word, to just sit there and be for a long, long time. I wasn't meditating. Thoughts would run through my head. I'd be aware of them. But most of the time, the trees are there. And so I guess it was kind of a nature experience.
Yeah,
But I was mostly being, in a way, giving myself that time.
You weren't experiencing urges. That causes you to want to do something else. Oh, I don't have to do anything else. I can still sit here.
I had a similar experience this morning. I tried to meditate, but I realized that I was looking out the window and I was just staring off into space, like just thinking about nothing. And I'm like, I don't think this is meditating.
You're correct. You're spot on with that. Yeah. So, yeah, it's not, obviously, and Geshe Gellick talks about this all the time. He goes, because he worries about us Westerners, that we don't know what we're doing. I can't imagine why he does that. But just a second. He says that, you have to guard against zoning out, because that's of no purpose at all. That's just a different kind of escape. And that's not going to make your life more meaningful. It's just, obviously we're going to do that from time to time, but it's not meditation, and it's the same thing when some people get attached to a blissful sensation when they meditate, and so that's what they're seeking. And that's also not meditation. It's an effect.
So the young lady, she said that she would meditate and zone out. So isn't that like meditating and losing focus on the meditation? That's why you zone out?
Yep.
Because if
You're not meditating anymore.
Right, you lost the focus of the meditation.
Right.
Right, so.
Or you never had one.
Or you never had one.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah. This is why we don't just, until you've got lots of experience, you just don't go sit. You have to have a task. So if you're developing, if you're just trying to develop your concentration, then, you meditate on the breath, or you do a full body scan, something like that, because you're just getting used to sitting, but it's, you don't just say, well, I'll just sit down and be quiet. That's not a plan, so this is why contemplation. So you've read something, you go, I'm going to use that. So then, make sure you're familiar with it. Then you sit down and then you contemplate it. You set an intention first, then you contemplate it, which you might just be going through it in your heads. Okay, it said this and said that. I think then, and it might, and you look at whatever, you kind of discuss it in your head. And then if you reach some understanding or something just hits you, resonates with you, you stop all that chatter and rest there. And then when it passes, you notice that it's passed and you go back to contemplation, or go back to the breath, whatever, but you have to have a plan.
So for beginners, it's okay to have that entertainment. I think you had talked about, even when we're meditating, sometimes we're entertained like with a candle or with like an app that says "Om," or you know what I mean?
I'm not into that. So I don't think I said that.
Okay. maybe
But
it's-
but it can be useful, certainly, because that can bring you back. Like if your meditation's on the sound of the bell or something, or your meditation's on the candle flame, then you have to keep your focus on that. Now you might just want to have a nice scent in the room and all, but those are all distractions. Blah, blah, blah. Let's have more sensory delight while I'm meditating. That's not, yeah, it's kind of like not the point. If you could also do things to relax. Meditation, you're supposed to start relaxed, which is a shocker to most of us, so you're supposed to already be relaxed and then you meditate. Most of us have to learn how to do that. So a lot of people start with their meditation, like this is how what is it, John Kabat-Zinn in his mindfulness, stress reduction, whatever it's called, is he has his clients lie down, to first just get to that place of being able to relax the body. So because the whole point of meditation is to become more alert, more aware. So you're relaxed, but you're awake, so. But most of us need a little, like most people start with, in a brief meditation session to at least for 5 minutes, spend it trying to follow your breath, and then maybe whatever topic you want to reflect on. So, but it's
Do do they say, so I'm I'm meditating to seek enlightenment, or do I acquire enlightenment because I'm meditating? Which is it?
it's an enlightenment's an effect.
Right, so I acquire enlightenment because of the meditation.
Hopefully, but
I
that's
don't
not.
meditate to acquire enlightenment.
Yes, well, yeah.
Right?
You need to train your mind in order to ever become enlightened.
Right.
So meditation's one of the tools we have to train our mind. Because the big thing is training the mind.
Retraining.
Yes, we've already got a
Right.
lot of training, and it's on the wrong track. So this is the idea. And not getting attached to whatever happened. Like you might, like sometimes I feel really good, today. Well, so, and it doesn't matter. It's not, you don't then the next day show up going, oh, I hope I feel really good again. Because that's not the point of the meditation. And, meditation's not about feeling good. Meditation's about training your mind, understanding the teachings, understanding whatever it is you're meditating on. So it's not about reaching sort of just this nice, pleasant buzz, So that's one of the clues that you just zoned out. If you just feel refreshed after because you've taken a nap. So you have to, now most people, if they're diligent about, meditation daily, it becomes a part of their life. It is, it's not something they skip because they miss it if they skip it. So it's just but it's a tool. You can also start with things like walking meditation, things like that. If you can't sit, but if you are able to sit, if you're able to sit and watch TV, odds are probably good that you can sit. You might not sit on a cushion, but you can sit quietly. Some people can't even sit and watch TV. People that just never actually, they might turn it on and then 2 seconds later they're up doing something else, and then they might come back, but then they're 2 seconds like those are the people who really can't sit yet. So they may need walking meditation. And of course that's where you have to focus on the walking. Otherwise, you're just distracted walking. you know. So it's, you're disciplining your mind by focusing on the walk. And so when you see a pretty tree, you stop walking and you look. But while you're walking, you focus on the walking. That's what makes it a meditation. If you've got an object of meditation and you hold your attention to it. And when you notice that you have quit holding your attention to it, you come back to it. So, during walking meditation, you're not listening to music or podcasts. I walk every day with a podcast because it's not a walking meditation. I have to walk every day. So I do. So I listen to teachings every day. Really wonderful. So, but it's this, so it's this, so all of this kind of thing, like training your mind to focus on your breath, whether, that sensation right at the end of your nose. How exciting is that?
And not very.
Oh yeah, get over yourself, Roy. Yeah,
It's exciting when you accomplish. the
that's what's
focus.
exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's different.
okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, and it's not meant to be exciting. The interesting thing is when you've done it for enough years, you notice all sorts of things about the breath that you would have never noticed otherwise. And then it can be interesting. But at first, it is literally a discipline. That's it. It's boring. And the more boring it is, the more you can be certain you're disciplining yourself. Back to the breath, back to the breath, but it's the discipline, So, and this is what's good about, so say you can't make yourself sit and do that. This is where you can use mindfulness of any activity as a starting point. While I'm doing this, while I'm washing the dishes, I'm just going to wash the dishes. I'm not going to listen to the news. I'm not going to have the radio on. I'm not going to talk to my friend on the phone. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to wash the dishes. Or one of my favorite things is drinking water. I always have a glass of water next to me. And so you could make that a mindfulness practice, that while you're drinking the water, you're drinking the water. And you go get the cup of water, you're just thinking about getting the cup of water. This is all discipline. It's just an effort to say, I can control what my mind's doing.
The point being to bring us into this moment.
Now, the point being that you can tell your mind what to do.
I always understood it to be that it brings us into this moment. When I did walking meditation.
That's fine, but that's not the actual. We need to train our mind to listen to us, to the instruction. Okay, it does bring you to the present moment, but the point is the training of being able to say, so that when you decide to do a meditation on emptiness, you can keep your focus. You can tell it that this is what your object is, and you meditate on that, and you don't do anything else. It's not about present moment then, because that's not what it's that's not the focus. The focus is on understanding how the mind exists, or the self exists, or whatever your object is.
I always understood that to be contemplation.
It is one until you understand the subject, but then you have to meditate on
it. So for the young lady, to me, see, now contemplation means different things to different people.
Yeah, but we're talking about the two
Right.
things here.
So my point is that are you contemplating the meditation, or you're contemplating the way the meditation makes you feel? Because there's a difference.
Yeah.
The meditation, as you say, the singular focus on the water or the dishes.
On the object,
On- right.
whatever the object of
You're not
meditation is.
contemplating the object.
So when you're training yourself, one of the things that a beginner's exercise in training the mind is recognizing when you're not in the present. When you're back in the past or you're thinking about the future. And so you ground yourself in the present, and the breath can do that. But the skill that you're developing is being able to tell your mind what to do.
And to hold a single point of focus.
Well, that's eventually, yes.
That's eventual.
Yeah.
But we have to build the muscle to.
Yeah. Eventually, if you keep practicing it and do it often enough, if you want to develop single point of concentration, usually you have to take a year off your life and do 18 sessions a day and da 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 da. I mean, because it's a skill to develop. So most of us are not aiming for that at the present time, but we can get ourselves to a lot more focus than we are right now. And we all know we have this ability. Why? Driven a car lately? How'd you learn that? You had to keep focused. We actually can do this. It's just that we've always been focused on something external, like driving a car, learning all the steps, da 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 da. Being, having an inner focus, like on a concept or something, is, we know how to daydream though. So, it's not that we don't have this ability. We haven't trained it to listen to what we tell it to do. That's the difference.
And part, so without all of the sensory delights, you termed it. So a part of the discipline is being able to block out all of the other things that
You don't block it out, you just don't listen.
you just don't listen.
There's a difference. We don't have to suppress anything. We just, oh, pain has arisen. You just don't follow the storyline.
Yeah, I remember once, the only thing I remember from Thich Nhat Hanh was that line. It was something like, if you could eat one slice of the tangerine, you could eat the whole tangerine. And
Mindfully.
yeah, I realized that,
Yeah.
when I'm eating one slice, I'm thinking about a zillion things. I'm never.
A zillion things, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all over the place. And so that's one thing about, like, Thich Nhat Hanh's focus is mindfulness, but that's not the main point of meditation, but it's the main starting point. Like, if you can't do one thing at a time, you're never going to do two things at a time, so it's, but that was his particular focus, in Zen meditation, you don't bring a subject to the meditation cushion. It's a different practice, so it's a different school of thought. It's, so you really can't compare apples and oranges. But it still has the effect of being able to train your mind on what you're telling it to notice, not what all the stuff that comes up,
Does your intention in training your mind matter?
Mhm.
So I have this book, a lot of people have read it, 48 Laws of Power. And one of the very first things it says is the man who cannot master his emotions will never be powerful. And so what's the difference between mastering your emotions and mastering your mind? And then
Mastering your mind allows you to go, well, love and compassion are great emotions to have. I think I'll cultivate those. I don't agree with that assessment, what that book is teaching. Yes, we need to be able to master our mind, which means that in a moment, it's like patience. Suffering arises in the mind and you don't retaliate. You train yourself, I'm not going to react to this because I don't want to do any harm, and you accept whatever harm's being done to you. That's mastering patience, so it's, we want to be able to choose what we do, not just react, and that takes a lot of mastery, so that's what they mean about mastering the emotions. Yeah. We want to be able to go, I'm not going to be chasing after whatever reaction I have. Whatever arises, if anger arises, fear arises, I'm not going to be just assume that it's correct. I'm going to pause and choose how I want to respond, not go with my habit energy. Until we've trained our habit energy to be the energy we actually want to follow.
Will we get there faster if we do it with the intention of, I want to master my mind, not so that I'm more powerful, but that I can like be a benefit of others.
Yeah, so I won't do any harm. I don't know if it's about faster. It's a better motivation, because it's not self-directed. Whenever we feed the self-centered mind, we're feeding that habit of going there first. What's in it for me? What's, this will make me this or that, and that's not what makes us happy. It may give you power, but that's what, so that's why you have to, setting an intention so important in a spiritual path, because you want to make sure what's guiding you throughout your day is what's meaningful to you, not just what the world's telling you what you should be chasing, So, so that when you discover, like you look around, you go, gee, I'm filling my days with things that actually don't matter a whole lot to me. I didn't realize before, but they're just filler, So I'm going to notice when it's not filler and it's something that, So we have to be curious. We have to be curious about ourselves. We have to be curious. We have to observe. We have to keep noticing, how am I responding to this? What buttons are being pushed? So that then we can start to kind of work on those issues as well.
So, it seems like that there's a fork in the road.
Mhm.
So that, when we let all this, the filler, the empty things fall apart, the samsara. And then we become more focused on deflation, said, and compassion. That's usually in relation. So that is then the fork that takes you towards living with the idea of being a benefit to sentient beings. And yet, in Buddhism and other traditions, there's this monastic fork in the road, which very often is going off by oneself for long periods of time in isolation.
Well, that's a very gross generalization. I mean, do most of the monastics do that? Thich Nhat Hanh certainly doesn't do it. He doesn't even allow you to be silent for very long.
No, but there are extended self retreats by oneself.
Yep. What do you think that's about?
It's probably so that when you come back,
you're better.
Yeah.
At helping others.
Yeah.
If we had to rely on householders to teach us the Dharma, it's going to disappear. We need people willing to make that their whole life, and they need time to also work with their minds. It's not like they're working with their minds and they're studying, they're working with their minds and studying, and then they're said, all right, you've got it. You could go out now and teach. It's that, no, you haven't got it, but you've learned something that you can share that will be useful to. And also, you need to benefit others in order to create the merit, to keep having opportunities, to keep learning, and to remove the obstacles to wisdom, So it's, and people who decide to, like most of the meditators that decide like to go off into the cave and meditate, they're trying to develop karma binding, and that takes like a really good environment. You have to have really good conditions, and not have lots of distractions, and you have to not have worries about food or dangers. It has all sorts of conditions that help. And so going to isolated places is one of them. So, but but the point of it isn't to learn how to be quiet. That's not what they're learning to do. You know, they're learning to focus their mind. They're learning to have, they're trying to have realizations, because we want to go beyond just intellectually understanding this stuff. We want to have an experience of impermanence. We want to have an experience of emptiness. We want to have an experience of all the teachings, so that of true suffering, all of it, so that we're no longer relying on intellectual knowledge. We're relying on direct perception, our experiences of things, because that changes the whole ball game. So, you know, and then people, you know, whatever path you end up on in a particular life probably reflects, you know, whatever obstacles you've removed. So some people, like I have a friend who started meditating at 4. Yeah. You know, he obviously had developed it somewhere else, you know, in some other life, you know. So you certainly wouldn't go, oh, I'm sorry, that's not the first step, you know. No, you just kind of go with that, you know. And other people who just, you know, it's clear that they've worked on compassion in many lives, you know, and, you know, they're just natural born social workers, you know. It's just like, you know, all this kind of stuff. My kid brother is the most generous person I've ever met from the time he was this big, you know. Just, you know, it's just, so we just, you know, and all the Buddhist schools lead to the same place, but they're for different dispositions of mind, you know. So we have to, you know, recognize, you know, when we fit with a certain path, but it won't be just, you know, it's not like every life they'll have the same path. Yes.
So I read this portion and I wanted to ask about it. The Buddha taught that there are 3 states of existence lower than humans, and each is the
Can you read it more slowly?
Sorry. Buddha taught that there,
What pages?
89, but I have a different version. It's on renunciation of suffering. And it's about,
3 lower states.
yeah. But the part that I wanted to ask you about says, depending on the individual karma, the suffering of these states can be experienced either in a particular physical location with a specific type of body or in the depths of the mind. And the part about the depths of the mind is what I really wanted to ask about. So it's like, kind of like we have these 3 lower bodies, but then we also have like 3 depths within our minds, and we could fit into one or the other. I don't know. I was just like,
Can you show
what?
it? Can you just show it to me?
Yes.
I can make sure I have the context.
You
Yeah.
talked about the 3 lower realms,
Yeah.
and then
Okay, so this is talking about hell realms, you know, the hell beings, hungry ghost, and animal realm. And you end up in those realms as those beings, you know, due to your karma ripening at the time of death in the previous life. But there are occasional hells, you know, it's just don't end to hells. But except if you end up in hell, that seed is going to exhaust. You won't stay there forever. I mean, it's just another realm of existence, you know. So you know, all of these things, when we talk about, you know, the desire realm, that's a type of mind. The mind that's really caught up with chasing desire, you know, and cravings and all that stuff, you know, and the form you take, you know, like animals have less choice over what kind of, you know, like they don't get to go to the grocery store and say, oh, I like that, you know, and pick that out, you know. So they have less freedom of choice. Then, and helpings are living a hellish type of experience, whether it's just mental, like some teachers say it's just mental, you know, but you know, so it's not a place particularly. It's a state of being where you're suffering constantly. They describe hell realms as like, you know, you climb up a tree where all the leaves or whatever, like palm trees, you know, are razor blades. And so you go up, and by the time you get up, you know, so you're cut into a million slivers, and then you fall down to the ground, and then you come back together again and have to do it all over, you know.
But is the notion punishment?
No, it's karma. No one's deciding, oh, now it's your turn to go to hell. No, you do something terrible, like, you know, kill 100 people, you know, and then you end up in a hell realm.
What if you like want to kill 100 people?
And too bad, you go to hell,
So
you know.
get caught up in ascribing words to it. So
You're ascribing more than cause and effect. It's cause and effect. You create the cause to experience a certain result. Okay. If that comes together so that that seed ripens at the time, you know, to cause you to be thrown into that kind of rebirth, you know, then you have to wait till it exhausts and you go through whatever that is. So mosquitoes, you know, they don't live long. So that insect rebirth doesn't last long. Now, does that mean they just born again as a mosquito? I don't know. Maybe some do, some don't, you know, but it's not like a million years in the hell realms, you know.
Do we have clues in this life of what our previous lives were that help us to kind of guide us?
What's happening to you in this life reflects the karmic seeds that ripened for this life. So you know that if you've got lots of resources, you've practiced generosity in a recent life, and that's what, you know, if you've got obstacle after obstacle, you know how we know people who do everything right, but things just financially don't work out for them. You know, that's from a lack of generosity. They don't have resources, you know. But it's not, nobody's up there, it's cause and effect. You know, holding on to this idea that only, I don't know, big things I do are going to have karma. You know, every moment of mine places a karmic seed. Not all of them have the power to throw you into a life. They're not strong enough for that. You know, but if you know, spend your life, you know, giving away all your resources to others, you know, whether it's a lot of resources or little resources, you know, like most of the donations in this country come from people of very modest means, you know, that's creating the cause to have more resources in the future. So it doesn't matter, you know, if you're a billionaire giving money, it's the fact that you give is the point, because it's a mental thing. Because this is all about the mind. So if you have the mind that's generous, that the result of that, the effect of that is resources. If you have the mind that's greedy, you know, always looking to, you know, I need more, I need more, I need more, you know, the next life, you know, you're creating the cause for destitution. And we just keep trading places. Ridiculous, yeah.
Is there a difference between a billionaire giving a beggar $20 and like a poor person in debt giving?
No, it's all about the
$20?
mind. Depends on their state of mind. Oh, motivation. This is again why we want to train our minds.
It's not how big the act of kindness is, because they both acted kind.
Well, it depends on their motivation.
Well, right, but it's not that one gave 1 million and one gave 20.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
It's the act of the kindness.
Well, and also what the motivation is, both. You know, I mean, like the millionaire or billionaire who gives $1 million to Trump so that, you know, to support his election, has a goal, has an agenda, you know, that still breeds resources because it's still giving, but it's not the kind of resources that you get from a genuine wanting to help someone else kind of motivation, you know. And they say that, like, even if you give, you know, like they, you know, it doesn't matter. Yeah, whatever you go. Oh, I thought you were going to say something. Okay. But cause and effect has nothing to do with someone else judging it. It's just what the Buddha observed once he was able to see, you know, see what was going on with everything. You know, it's that it's not that someone's judging something. It is just literally cause and effect. And we've done everything. We've been to hell realms, we've been to animal realms, we've been everywhere.
What is ultimate bodhicitta?
Ultimate bodhicitta is the mind of an Arya who has realized emptiness and also has bodhicitta. So it's just the mind of an Arya being who has realized emptiness. They come with that bodhicitta mind. So now they have ultimate bodhicitta. It's a realization of emptiness. That's the key. It's no different. It's just now it's a person who has bodhicitta in their mind stream and also has the realization of emptiness in their mind stream.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you're talking about intellectual realizations versus experiential, that like in the book, I think it said somewhere like the false sense of I starts to fade away, and then you realize, I guess that yeah.
You have the experience of selflessness.
But does the intellectual realization occur with that, or is
It leads to that.
Okay.
So when you've developed your ability to focus so that you can really hold your object, okay, for as long as you need, and you focus on how the things actually exist, eventually you will have a realization, an intellectual realization of how reality is, and it's accurate, okay? That mind is powerful enough to be the cause of the mind that has a direct perception of emptiness. So you can't have that direct perception of emptiness without having the other thing. We have to understand it.
Even though the way we usually understand it is
Wrong.
yeah, right.
Right. Yeah, so we have to develop a lot of wisdom before any of that can happen. And one of our biggest things is having enough merit to remove the obstacles to being able to do it. Like one of the things, you need a lot of merit to be able to have the good conditions to develop calm abiding. You know, because you need resources, you need good, you know, all sorts of things, you know. So that's one of the, you know, ways. So it's all this combination of things that what the Buddha noticed was that what we do and why we do it matters in terms of what is going to happen next, you know. So, you know, it's what creates our experiences. So when we can develop some control over our minds, train our minds, then we can really direct what's going to happen, because we can really guard our actions of body, speech, and mind. You know, we can develop our wisdom because we're not distracted. You know, we understand this process of, you know, doing positive actions in order to remove obstacles. You know, but it's a whole process. But getting control of your mind is a big piece of that process of being able to remove obstacles and stuff. But it doesn't, you know, so if you want to penetrate the teachings, you need to be able to settle all those distractions down so that you can really understand them. That makes sense. And that takes, different traditions do different things, but it's like even at Thich Nhat Hanh's, all the monastics are studying. Do a lot of study, but the way they approach their meditation sessions is different. It has a different, they use a different technique, but having been a nun and gone to their retreats, I know how much teaching is done to the monastics and how much study there is. So it's not, it's just not what they do for lay people. So it's this training of being able to recognize you can control your actions of body, speech, and mind. It doesn't mean suppressing. It just means you can choose what you say, choose what you think, choose what you can, what a lot of the thoughts that arise, you just don't follow them anymore. They may pop up because of habit, but they have no interest to you. So you have like that, you have this, like, oh, cream puff sounds good, but you're not gonna, it's barely there.
You can remove your own emotional or psychological.
Well, you just aren't giving into them, but it's because, it's not that you don't want to feel or not have emotions. It's that you want to not have anger, greed. You don't want to have unskillful states of mind arise, what we call disturbing emotions. But things like love and compassion and kindness and patience, those are all things we do want to have arise.
Yeah, but lack of like self, some call imposter syndrome types of thing.
Yeah, because they're
Focusing-
destructive.
Right. Those are just stories that you're telling.
Yeah, they're just wrong. And so you start to learn that, oh, that's just not true.
Right.
I'm making up a story. So why am I listening? Yeah, well, part of the problem is we like stories. I mean, look at our books and our TV shows and our movies. We like to be entertained. And that's that, oh, this moment's not so interesting. Let's find a different thing to be interested in. So, and then we need to recognize that that's a waste of our life. That we really want to spend our time maybe developing skills that might be a benefit to someone else or to our understanding of teachings or a spiritual path or whatever. I mean, so it's understand, and that's where renunciation comes in. When you realize, I mean, renunciation is this you're renouncing suffering and all the causes of suffering. Chasing desires, feeding craving is a cause of suffering. Recognizing that all the sensory delights that we indulge in are a cause of suffering. Because when they end, we suffer. Oh, that didn't last long, So it's this understanding of that, and then trying to focus your life on being able to fill it with things that are the causes of happiness, which are things like helping others, benefiting others, developing your wisdom, and we can do that no matter what we're doing. That's what's so interesting to me, is that it doesn't matter what kind of job you have, if you approach it from the angle of how am I helping others, then that's what we want to do. So it's just, and that's how we make every moment of our day meaningful. And it means when we need rest, we rest. That we recognize, okay, I'm not going to be any good to anybody if I don't rest. So, and that means when we're hurting, that we have self-compassion, because we're not going to be good to anybody if we're, not taking care of ourselves, because we're not Buddhas yet. So we suffer, So it's this, it's attention to the self and then choosing how to respond to it. as opposed to just becoming more and more self-interested. So it's, you know, it's doesn't matter what you're doing, it's a matter how you're doing it, what mind you're bringing to it. That's why setting intentions is so helpful. And so that's the idea behind, you know, selfless listening. It's that way of really being present for someone else that you're interacting with, you know, that it's, you know, so that you really want to um, make sure you understand them, you know. So it's just it, and of course we don't always understand. We can hear the words, we can, you know, and we still won't, because we can't experience what someone else has experienced. So what, you know, it's always going to be lacking some knowledge, but it's, you know, if you're not even listening to what they're saying, that lacks even more. So, you know, and if we're listening with our self-interest, you know, if we're listening to, you know, like, oh, can I kind of direct this conversation over to here to make sure I get what I want, you know, so that kind of thing. All right. But it's really about the mind. So this idea of being in a hell realm or something, it's, you could talk about it in terms of physical place, but you can also talk about it in terms of what the experience of that mind is going through. You know, they don't take form anywhere. They're, you know.
It just seemed like there was, I think you cleared it up. There's really only karma of the mind, but it seemed like as written, there was karma, like physical body karma and like physical mind karma.
Well, there is not physical mind karma. There's mental experiences as well as physical. You know, it's like we get physically hurt. We suffer physical feelings, you know, and then we can add mental suffering on top of that or not. You know, so I mean, we both, that's feelings have come in both flavors, mental and physical, because the mind is not physical. But it's, but we don't, there's nothing, there's no realm other than enlightenment that's everlasting. You know, it's not like you get stuck somewhere and the karmic seed doesn't exhaust. It exhausts. So we, you know, and they say, you know, according to the Buddha, we've been everything. We've gone except enlightened. So, but you know, and I think that it's, you know, it's like, I know I was reading or something by Tenzin Palmo. She's a nun, a Tibetan nun that did, she did retreat for 12 years. And when she, in one of her breaks, she was listening to Mozart or something on a, you know, something like Mozart. And one of her Tibetan friends came in and said, "We don't have music like that, do we?" And she goes, "No." And it's really beautiful. You know, and so it's not that we can't, you know, that it's wrong to enjoy or appreciate or whatever. It's not like that. It's just that that's not the purpose of our life, you know. And so it's just um yeah. It's so ironic, you know. I think that you were saying earlier about people going off to meditate or something. So those of us in the West who have really pretty good conditions in general, as far as, you know, if you get the, if I, you know, I got to ordain and I have savings enough to, you know, not starve, you know, that's a good thing, you know. But at the same time, it is not so easy for me to go someplace and meditate. I'm going to go do a 11-day meditation retreat. Well, I had to fly there from here, and it's, plane fare is not cheap. I mean, so it's just, it's like a whole different kind of obstacles that can arise, and it's like there was another one in September in California. I thought, oh, you probably can't do both of those because they're both flying across country, whereas, if you're living in, at a monastery in India or something, you probably have more ability to just set that up for yourself. But maybe not. That may just be my, making up a story. So, but it's just so funny how it's like, not enough merit. It's just, you just need a lot of merit. And when you read some of these autobiographies of teachers, and what they were willing to give up in order to get where they wanted to go, and think, well, I can see why I'm not there yet, because I'm not willing to, I'm not willing to cross the Himalayas, to be safe and, continue my life as a monk or something, no. So that's a pity. Have you read Geshe Rapton's autobiography?
Reading, I just started Thubten, forget his last
Yeah.
name. They have 30 years in the.
Well, Geshe Rapton was talking about how he really wanted to go to the monastery and study, and what he had to go through to be able to get there. This is before the exile, because he ended up in Switzerland, but it's just like when I'm reading it going, yeah, I don't think I'd do that. So, yeah, there you go. Oh, well. All right. So just trying to figure this stuff out and thinking about it, is a way that we remove obstacles, because we get, positive, and we get merits from it. So that's a very good thing. So we want to be generous with it. That's the whole point of all these kinds of prayers and things, that they're all about giving away your merits, and all this stuff, because we want to practice generosity to remove obstacles, And then you say prayers, and you recite, you say the praises to the teachers and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Again, that's to create merit. Now, it doesn't create merit if you're just reciting the words thinking, oh God, I can't believe I have to say this, every day, 6 times a day or something, that's not earning merit. So, even though it might be positive speech, if your intention's kind of pitiful, not earn much merit. So, and that's just cause and effect. No one's judging it. It's just simple cause and effect. And we can't judge other people's minds. So we don't know what, how strong their motivation is, and stuff. So we may be misjudging people. So, okay. All right. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, this is page 235 if you can't see the screen. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may we quickly attain the state of Guru Buddhas and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra too realize things as they are, I too dedicate all these merits in the best way that I may follow their perfect example. And then I think it's on page 2. Yep. 241. Because of all the merits of the 3 times created by us and all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and other sentient beings, may there be no wars, famines, disease, quarreling, fighting, or unhappy minds. May there be great prosperity, and may everything needed be easily obtained. May all the human beings in the world be guided by spiritual leaders teaching only Dharma, and may everyone enjoy the happiness of Dharma. May everyone have perfect conditions and have only compassion and love for each other and their mind streams. And may they only and never harm each other. And then page 240, what, 4? Yeah. There's holiness. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Shinrei Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And page something else, 230.
34.
That's not the page I need. Okay. All right. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losam father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that's never discouraged. Incomparable venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Yeah.